Hey, so this is gonna be my birth story video, which I've tried to film a few times and it hasn't really gone great. So hopefully this time will be the one and I'll remember everything that I need to say. Daphne was due on the 20th of November and I never really thought much about the due date because obviously babies can come a bit before and a bit after. So if anything, I thought she was going to be a bit later. But on the evening of the 18th, I just felt a bit funny and I hadn't had much dinner. I put myself to bed or for a rest at about 7:30, and my mum came in and checked I was all right and turned off the lights and stuff. And now looking back on it, I guess those were hormones, because half an hour later, or half an hour to an hour later, it was about 8 o'clock, my waters broke, which was, I wasn't expecting it to happen then. In fact, I was really shocked because leading up to her birth, I never showed many signs. Like, throughout my pregnancy, I didn't really experience Braxton Hicks, or just nothing to me felt like she was coming soon. So it was a bit of a surprise. And the gushes of water continued for the next hour or so. So what happened then, when I was in my room, my waters broke, and I went to see my mum and tell her. And at that time in the house, it was my mum, my sister, and my dad. So it was a bit exciting, and we knew something was going to happen soon. Especially as I know that NHS policy kind of thing is that you have to give birth 48 hours after your waters break. That might be different elsewhere in the world, but that's to reduce the risk of infection. So yeah, I was super excited, and I knew that hopefully the contractions or the waves would start soon, and they actually started at 9 o'clock, so an hour later. Before they'd started, I'd rang Harvey, who needed to travel 2 hours, to let him know that, yeah, my waters have broke, so it's definitely gonna happen soon. So he made the trip, and that was really nice. And it was funny because during the end of my pregnancy, he would always be expecting a phone call about how, me ringing up saying, by the way, my waters are broken. And each time I ring him, he'd be like, are you in labour? And I'd be like, no. But then this time, obviously, I was like, yeah, I think it's happening. And it was really exciting. So he started his 2-hour journey, and I'd ran the labour line, because you need to ring them to let them know that your waters have broken, because they'll ask you a few questions to check that there's no meconium in the babies, in the waters, and things like that, just to check that the baby's not stressed, and just to ensure everything is going as it should be. And they also, if you're part of the home birthing team, which I am, they'll let your home birthing team know. So I rang them up and let them know. They asked me the questions. It was all fine. She told me to just relax a bit, because I'd basically sleep whilst I can, because maybe the next day or soon I'd have a lot of work to do. And I guess we didn't expect everything to happen so quickly, because once I'd rang her, spoken to Harvey and everything, I actually had to ring her again before Harvey arrived, because the once the waves had started, they were intense really quickly. They never were this typical 5 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute, which is when you're meant to call the labour line, and when you can go into hospital, or have a member of the home birthing team come to see you. So they never really did that typical thing. And before I knew it, they were 3 minutes apart, and they were really intense, lasting about 30 seconds. And so by the time Harvey arrived, I think from 9 till 10 they were pretty not relaxed. What's the word I'm looking for? From 9 till 10 till 10:30, they were manageable and not too painful. But even when Harvey had arrived, they were getting pretty intense, and I I thought, wow, this is all happening so quickly. Because in my head, I thought that first births had to be, not had to be, but I thought the majority of first births can be up to 30 hours, they can last 2 days, the labour process. So I was kind of not expecting this to happen all so quickly and all so intensely. And we're only like 3 hours into when my waters had broke. So I got half to ring them again and just to let them know my pattern and stuff. And I couldn't ring them because I knew that because the waves were happening so quickly, I knew that one would happen whilst I was on the phone, and you can't speak through them because you really need to put your full energy into them. So when he rang, I think that was the third time he'd rang them, and I'm not sure if this was the time that they told me to have a bath or not, or if this was the time when, no, I think this was the time when I had decided that I needed someone from my home birthing team to come and check how I was doing, because, it was starting to be really intense, and I needed kind of some confidence that I was going in the direction I wanted, and that basically I wasn't 2 centimeters dilated. And to start pushing, you need to be 10 centimeters. So I remember I needed a confidence boost because I wanted, of course, to have a home birth, and my intention was to have a unmedicated birth. So I didn't want to use pain relief. That was mostly because I really wanted to feel everything. I wanted to feel what it was like to bring her into the world in its full intensity. So of course it's not an vital thing. Everyone has different ways what they wish their birth to be, and of course some people choose that some people want a painless birth, so they want all the meds, and that's their decision. And I really wanted to try to have a unmedicated birth. So at this point, I thought I needed some help. Someone to tell me that I thought I needed a confidence boost. Someone to tell me that I was nearly there, basically, because I think I might have needed a bit of help, or I don't know what decision I would have made. That's a different reality if if I wasn't as far as where I'd wanted to be. But so basically, with the home birthing team, if they come out and check on you and you're not as far along as you think you are, then they will go home. So they have to wake up if it's the middle of the night. And I know this is their job, but I really didn't want them to wake up and have to come out and then go back, because I think this lady was about 40 minutes away. It was a bit of a shame because my designated midwife wasn't on duty that night, but the midwives that came, they were so lovely, and it was just really good team. So a really nice midwife came and checked on me, and I think she arrived at around 1:30. And it's intense now. I'm kind of just like, hey, not really, not really. It's an interesting way for someone to meet you, basically. And she checked me, and I was 6 centimeters, so that was the confidence boost that I needed. And before she arrived, I was in the bath, and I had one paracetamol, and then I ended up dry heaving it back up. And I think that was a result of not having any dinner that night, because I felt a bit funny. So I was kind of running on low energy. But when she told me I was 6 centimeters, I was so happy, and I just knew from that point that I'd be able to continue doing it unmedicated, and hopefully continue it at home if everything was gonna go well. So that was great. And my dad and Harvey had spent time filling up the birth pool. So by this point, around 1:30, we'd taken everything downstairs, because I had mostly been labouring in my room with Harvey. And it's really funny because I'd made a birth playlist and a labour playlist, and I didn't want any of it. I just wanted silence. And although I had researched hypnobirthing and knew a few little pointers from hypnobirthing. I never really practiced it in my throughout my pregnancy, and I think that's also because I thought, you know, things would just be fine, and I felt quite confident about the birth, and I've never really had too much of a fear about childbirth. So I kind of just thought, right, I'm gonna do this. And I used to love people who knew me back at school, knew me when I was a bit younger. I used to love running and cross country, and so I kind of saw the birth as a endurance cross country kind of challenge. So in my head, I'd always think, right, I've got to do this. There's only one way to do this, and it's got to be done. So let's just go into it with confidence and just trusting my body, expecting that it'll go well. So yeah, at this point we went down to the birthing pool, and I even got a bigger pool because originally I thought maybe Harvey could come in and be with me in the birthing pool, but I just needed myself. And although of course I needed him in the same room as me at all times, and I could really feel his presence, and if he left the room I'd know that he was gone. But yeah, I didn't want anyone in the pool with me, and that's quite funny. But he was delivering me water, and I think I was stacking on a few dry like figs and stuff because I wanted to keep my energy levels up, but also try to keep it healthy. So I bought some dried apple and dried figs and a few little snacks, some nuts and things. And what happened next? So at this point we're in the dining room, and the second midwife arrived around 2:30, I think. And I was just labouring in the pool doing deep breathe in and breathe out breaths, which is how what I found most beneficial throughout the labour was just deep in and out breaths. Oh, I think someone might be waking up, but I am talking quite close to her, so. And yeah, so I also made low humming noises, which really helped me, just keeping everything deep. There wasn't screaming or anything like that, so obviously we all have different births, but I think it's good to note that it's not all screaming sometimes or like crying. It's not all so really like torturous sounding, which you can sometimes see in movies or watching telly. Or yeah, it was pretty calm. And the midwives told me that at some point I would feel like a pushing sensation, and in a way I think that might have made me feel a bit rushed because I kind of knew to expect it, and up until that point I was kind of just going with the flow, and I think I made myself feel a bit rushed to push. So it really does feel like something's coming out of your butthole, so that's really interesting. But yeah, so eventually I felt the urge to push, but it wasn't really that strong. Like up until that point, my contractions had been really strong and I couldn't talk through them. And then eventually, when we got to pushing, things just slowed down, it felt, and I could talk a bit more. And I found the pushing stage really, really hard. And actually, I'd pushed for at least an hour, and they're constantly checking your baby's heart rate, and hers was really great, and it didn't drop at all really. So she wasn't stressed or anything. But I know that they prefer for you to just push for up to an hour, even though you can safely push for longer. But once we'd reached an hour, I just thought maybe I needed a bit of help because I didn't want her heart rate to decrease at all. And I was just wondering, why I was finding this pushing stage so hard. Because some, people can push the baby out in just 3 pushes or whatever. So what happened next? I think at that point I made the decision that I wanted to be transferred, just so I could have some help. And obviously it wasn't my intention to have forceps or the vacuum delivery, but I think I was just tired, and I thought, wow, this is this is really hard. So when they ring the ambulance, it's like a non-emergency situation, so it's not stressful. You know, you can keep it calm, and there's no flashing lights to your house or anything. So Harvey got my hospital bag, and one of the midwives actually said, you know, I think you're going to give birth in the ambulance, because by this point, you know, I can feel her head and the baby's coming out. I just couldn't do this final push that was needed. So before the ambulance arrived, I went into the toilet, and that was it basically. And it's because when I'd read throughout my pregnancy that if you go to the toilet, it helps open things up. And I can't remember going to the toilet much at all throughout the labour. But when I went to the toilet before the ambulance arrived, I felt an urge to push, and that was just the one that I needed. So one of the midwives was like, oh, quick, come up, because she didn't want me to give birth on the toilet. And she was like, she said to her other midwife, I need a delivery pack. And basically I gave birth to Daphne in the hallway, which is fine, like no problems. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So crazily beautiful, intense, and I'm really glad that I did end up giving birth to her at home. So then when the ambulance arrived, oh hey little one, we didn't actually need them. Oh, okay, I think I'm gonna go. But I will do another video, I think, about the placenta, birthing the placenta. Maybe I'll do that today, or bye.